Welcome to a brand new season of Health and Safety Unplugged, your go-to podcast for cutting-edge insights in health, safety, communications, and business leadership. I'm Matt Jones, your host with over a decade experience in health and safety, bringing you conversations with subject matter experts that promise not just to inform, but to transform how you approach safety in your business. This show is proudly sponsored by Advanced Safety, the company I lead in making health and safety simple since 2016. In this episode, we're also excited to partner with SiteApp Pro. If you're looking to streamline your site's safety processes, join over 165,000 work sites who trust SiteApp Pro for hazard management, communications, and visitor management. Simply check out www.try.siteappro.com/unplugged for a free implementation plan tailored to your specific needs. This is your chance to get started with a SiteApp Pro at no cost, with experts ready to set you up for success. You can find all the details and links in the episode's description. Now, let's dive into today's episode, and don't forget to share your thoughts and join the conversation on all social platforms. Enjoy. Welcome everybody to a very special episode of Health and Safety Unplugged, where I am joined by CEO of SiteApp Pro, Michael Hartley.
Thanks, man.
Welcome, Michael. And Storm McDonald, Executive Sales Manager.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
right,
thanks.
Good. I'm glad I'm getting titles correct. So welcome both. I am in Birkenhead, North Shore in Auckland, at the SiteApp Pro HQ. I've been very warmly welcomed, fed and entertained within the first half hour of being here. So thanks, guys. I guess I wanted to take this opportunity, one, to provide further well-deserved exposure to the organisation and what you guys are doing. I certainly know that myself and the team at Advanced Safety have been really enjoying using the tool.
Cool.
I guess also just give the opportunity for our followers to find out more about what you do, what makes you tick, and where to from here. The team have very kindly previewed my questions and given me the seal of approval. So I'll kick off by going right back to where it all began in terms of the origin story of SiteApp Pro.
Sure. Yeah.
So perhaps maybe we'll start off there and hear about why the organisation came to be and perhaps some of your early learnings.
Yeah. Shall I do that one? Yeah.
Well, you were here at the start. I joined partway through.
Yeah. So Comply Pro sprang out of a software development company called Rad3. So a little bit of background. Rad3 was my third software company, and it was a bit of a lifestyle company in that we were a software development, 12 people, guns for hire. We had clients from DHL, Mahifix, Christchurch based organisation, all the way through to Whole Foods markets in the States and others. So it was a really good bespoke house. We enjoyed ourselves. And, those entrepreneur journeys that you get to the end of 10 years of it, myself and John, our current CTO, and Greg, our head of design, we looked at one another and went, you know what, if we don't change, we'll be doing exactly the same thing in 10 years. And at the same time, we watched software as a service develop massively over that time period. And indeed, a lot of the customers we were building for were in that space. We've seen the trend from mobile. We've been using AWS, Amazon Web Services, for a long time. So, we could see all the technologies coalescing, things like Stripe and that coming around as well. And at the same time, we had a friend of mine ran a industrial abseiling company. He had a worker fall off a building. We were out on the 10th hole at a golf course that won't go named. And I remember, like, to this day, the look on his face when he took that call. And it just, and he's a big, tough, rough, sort of industrial sort of guy. And it just melted him. And then I got a call from him a couple of days later. He ran off the course and it was all on. And he said, could have technology help with that? I said, well, you could have started with some photos, I guess. And anyway, we pulled that into Rad3 and we took it apart in terms of an idea. And we've been building a lot of form-based solutions, and we've been tracking how a lot of this sort of stuff came together. And so for us, we looked at it and went, there's a genesis for the solution there. And at the same time, we had another friend customer come towards us who'd looked at a very similar thing in food safety. And we looked at these two problems and went, it's actually the same stuff on a different day, right? And so we can build that. And so that really was the genesis of SiteApp Pro. And so that was in sort of December of 2017. And over the next year, we went through the process of building the heart of the Comply Pro engine, which is where SiteApp lives, pulling together the team and the business. And then in July of 2018, we threw the switch and stopped being Rad3 and started being Comply Pro. And so we, typical, not typical for startups, we hit the ground running and running pretty hard. By Christmas, we'd had 40 customers on board of SiteApp, and we had about 150 of Safety Pro. So we were really we hit the ground running and got along with it. Big thing for us was the Pike River, the Royal Commission, changed the mindset of Kiwi construction companies in terms of, so there weren't solutions. People were out looking, our good friends at HazardCo had taken paper and tried to turn it into an app, and there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on. But for us, we felt it was the right time to sort of hit the market, and without being arrogant, spending your lifetime in software, a thing or two about what works in the field force and automation space. So we really focused as much as we could on the best user experience. And I'd like to think that DNA is still with the software today. So scroll forward. We are 3,300 customers. We operate in Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and Canada. We've got 6 staff on the ground in Toronto as we speak. With 37 staff overall. So
amazing. So in terms of a clear and consistent trajectory, I'm assuming there probably would have been a few bumps and lumps along the way. That springs to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the biggest thing that changed in the software for us was that, so we built this, what we thought was quite cool software, and it worked really well if you were a single construction company and you had, 7 or 8 field teams, and you wanted to control them from a central point, and that was great. But what it lacked was a level of aggregation. So take it, your company, and you bring your health and safety standards along to one of your customers, and so how do you then deploy that at scale and at speed? And so we built what we call the groups function that allows us to consume payloads from anywhere. It could be WorkSafe, could be SiteApp, could be Advanced Safety, could be anyone. You can pull that template in and then deploy that to your teams and sites as you need to. And that provided us this ability to aggregate really quickly. And there was a real bump in the road for us in terms of who we could sell to and how our ideal customer profile could change. And it brought us out of that, person in a van up into that mid-sized market. And then the other obvious one that springs to mind was COVID. So when COVID broke, like everyone in New Zealand did, we all sat there and went, okay, what's next really? And given we had a hospitality product and a construction product, the outlook wasn't too great. But then under level 3, construction got back up and running, and we built a QR tool that lived on top of SiteApp, which allowed people to do the health checks on site. And so we knocked over, so May 2020 was our best month for about 2 years. It's now it's a pretty regular month of that volume, but we had an absolute spike. And one of the things that blew me away about my team and actually our technology was that we were able to do we're rolling out 7,000 users a month, and we were able to do that from our desks at home. We were able to do that remotely. And in the software, one really big construction company, we rolled them out in less than 6 weeks. From the time they said go to the time that everyone in the organisation was using it was 6 weeks. And so that was a coming of age moment. And even today in Canada, we sold one on Friday afternoon, mid-sized company. They were up and running with Saturday morning. Wow. So that's still in our DNA. Yeah. So it's kind of fun.
It's a super agile beast in a way. That's so good to hear. And then so Storm, so in your role, your finger must be on the pulse in terms of customer feedback and the sense of user experience. So in terms of that, what are some of the things that you're hearing back from your customers?
Yeah, we not only customers, everyone prospects that look at the system and decide whether that's the system I want to go for. We get a lot of feedback from anyone and everyone. The kind of key thing that people look for in the software systems is ease of use, making sure that their apps and whatever they're using on site, if they are going to go away from paper, is simple for their staff to be able to engage with, to complete checks, manage their risks, and all those sorts of things, but also enable them to be part of the health and safety process. You get some apprentices that got into the work to play with tools and bang hammers and all that kind of stuff, but this is still such a major part of their job that they need to get home safe at the end of the day. So as long as the system is able to enable them to understand the risks and what they need to do each day, then that's the main thing that they're looking for. And then most of the feedback we get from the customers comes through from everyone on any size. The man in the van wants something simple and easy to use that they can just easily get shared documents to their main contractors.
Mm-hmm.
The main contractors want something that their contractors can easily come in, do an induction, and then go onto site and understand the risks that they're involved in. So it was about taking that feedback and then building that system to meet the needs for anyone in that construction industry or in high risk industry as well. We're not just that construction site, but all those too. And that customer feedback has come through a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because for me, one of the big criticisms I have in terms of the traditional paper-based systems is that it is almost always driven by one or two key people within the organization. And it's usually those poor individuals that have to run around from location to location trying to gather the documentation, get it back to the office, to then try and decipher what's in there, if you're lucky.
And that's a huge burden on the company itself. The time spent running around to maybe get something that was half completed that's full of coffee stains and or mud everywhere and all those, and then is illegible, so it's somewhat useless in that sense as well. You try to scan that document, it's take you hours, where the SiteOut Pro will allow you to easily see all those details straight away from the office. So they're not running around those multiple sites. They can see issues immediately from the device as well, so that they can react to issues as soon as they can, stop people from doing something unsafe if they need to. But everything is legible. They see the reports, they know what's going on, they can make sure that people are doing what they need to and stopping them and understanding what's actually going on those sites too.
And I'm assuming it has a positive impact on things like document control as well, right?
Yeah. A lot of, health and safety is not just, playing with the tool safely. It's all the documents alongside that, the SOPs and the risk management. So easy being able to access those and everyone having that at their fingertips, so that anyone can just grab those, fill them out, complete them, make sure that it's got all they need. And then your directors know that their staff have that too, so they have that duty of knowing what they need to do. They can see what staff members are actually engaged in that process.
So that was one of the really big things that I really liked when I first looked at SiteOut Pro from the back end. So I guess I was one of those kind of initial meet and greet people who was like, "Wow, this is really good, dude! Like, this is exactly what we've been looking for." And it's around the data management, right? So it's one of the biggest issues that many health and safety practitioners have is how do we actually mine this information? You guys seem to have found a bit of a sweet spot in terms of how to actually visually demonstrate what's coming through, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the what's in the system right now is pretty good. We like it, but we have plans to build it out a long way. So essentially that concept of being DocuSign for health and safety and moving in a direction. With AI and with meta tagging, we're able to actually mine into those documents a lot more as well. So you can start looking for trends across. And then, coming back to that point of being a larger organization, we've already got the dashboards and you can see work sites versus work sites and other things. Incident risk management would do quite well, but actually being able to get inside those resources and say, are these the right sources for the right job? Who's using them? When was the last time they were referenced? All that, what's the expiration date on them? So we've got a whole plan in there. And then I guess the other thing that's going on, sort of I won't reveal too much, but very soon we've got a probably the easiest way to describe it is a dynamic permit process. So if you think about something like confined space, and so you're entering a confined space environment, you've got to get a signature as you go in, you've got to get a time check at a certain point, you might be taking oximeter reading when you're in there, and you've got to come back out at a certain point and someone else has got to check that all off. So your traditional form processes go in, go out, start and end, and this is actually a living form that's going to be part of the work process. So we've got that'll be coming to a site near you soon, not far away, and that takes us off to the other side where your documentation becomes more than just documentation. It actually becomes a thing that was managed. And, it allows us to go into, there's been some real tragedies in confined space, and we're very aware of them. It's like we're starting to add value to the really dangerous places. Which,
it's great. It's really timely. Having some conversations on. So for some of the viewers, they may know that we founded the New Zealand Health and Safety Professionals group. There was a discussion on the Facebook group not so long ago around permit to work, and it's almost at the moment there's a sense that it gives us a bit of a false security, because the system isn't really being used as it was designed to be. And I think one of the key reasons for that is its usability. So the fact that you've front-footed that and getting a bit of an exclusive that this could be on the horizon is great. It's really, really exciting.
Yep.
You've also got me thinking about, there's two things here. One is, on the one hand, as an officer of an organisation, they've got the 6 duties, including ensuring that there's adequate resource in place for health and safety to actually be brought to life within the business. But also, just as importantly, is the verification that actually the resources that have been put in place are suitable and are actually being used. So what you're doing is demonstrating a significant portion of what the officer's duties are. So that's on one hand, amazing. And then on the other hand is the workers' duties as well. So you're ensuring that they are not only aware of what policy process they should be following, but they're actually actively engaging in it.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah. I think that, as Storm said before, that so much of what you've got to do with health and safety is move it away from tick and flick and move it towards engagement. And just like there are 7 learning styles, everyone learns differently, everyone responds differently. And so for us as a software provider, it's our job to put many things in market that provide different people different ways to engage, and different industries, different businesses, different cultures, different work environments. They all have different types of engagement. We need to serve up a methodology that's quite broad and quite powerful in terms of engagement.
Definitely. And then you guys have got quite a kind of neat trick in terms of encouraging even greater levels of engagement within the tool, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the engagement is where SolidPro begins. It's, your directors and officers might get those duties and nail them completely, but if you don't get the engagement from the staff on the ground, there's no point how thorough your director is. It all falls on their engagement. So tools like the ease of use and the way that the forms are working with inside that Pro in terms of knowing what you as an individual have to do each day, week, month. The engagement score itself, allowing for an individual to actually get a score based on their engagement, so they can see that, gamifying health and safety, which is a whole different concept, but allows them to actually see how well they're doing. And then for the director to see who is doing better or who's falling off in that as well, and what's going on. Why is that person, suddenly engaging less but causing more incidences? There's those kind of things as well. So actually getting that idea of who is engaging and getting them encouraging to use the system, even some of the workflows within it, checking into site, you then have to fill out your forms and those kind of steps that they take. All those is all designed to encourage and enable the staff on site to be part of it.
And then you're able to then track the improvements. So you're getting a baseline of where individuals are actually currently at.
100%.
Identifying those that are doing great and acknowledging those, and then pouring some resource into those that perhaps are struggling. They might have 2 fat thumbs and they might just need a little bit more of assistance.
Well, what you'll find is that you start getting patterns of your whole business is not engaging with this aspect, right? And so there's a work on there. So your next, your weekly stand up or your toolbox, whatever it is, then you focus in on that aspect. So, and so I think I saw some really interesting stats the other day out of Canada that the average age of a construction worker is now under 35 or something. Right? So it's trending down. And if you think of someone who's 35 years old, they've had cell phones or smartphones their whole life. Right? And so, when we started 6 or 7 years ago, we used to go like, if they can use the TAB racing page, they can use our software. And now it's like, you're not having those conversations. Like, it's on, of course it's on a phone. That's like, And another interesting stat was that when we started, I think 70 or 80% of the devices were Android. And so Android was really important to us because that's where the customer base was. Today, that's completely reversed. I think we've got in the Auckland market, 70 or more percent of our customers are on iPhones, right?
Yeah.
And, given they're the premium device in the market and, they're delicate and all those things, like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing big trends in terms of usability in the mobile device because of demographics, because of technology. And then, as Storm says, that's where the engagement score particularly really plays, right?
Yeah.
And gamification opportunities there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. It's so good because one, gamification of health and safety is a win straight away. But two, is just that the data and being able to demonstrate the improvements that an organisation is making.
Yeah.
In health and safety, it's traditionally really, really hard to demonstrate good health and safety performance, other than we haven't killed anyone this year, hooray! Which is not exactly the most positive way of doing it.
Until you do, and it's like,
Yeah. So in terms of the return on investment, I guess that should be my next question: is are there any examples, or can you think of any businesses or users that have been able to use some of the data they've collated to champion or to be able to promote health and safety excellence?
Most customers that we get feedback from, anyone that uses the system to its full capabilities has that initial period of going from paper and that slowdown, and then seeing that improvement almost straight away, going from not knowing what risks they had on site, potentially missing out on some tenders and pre-qualifications from not being able to prove their health and safety or have that aspect, or DSA, the principals who get mad at the contractors for not having certain systems in place and all those kind of things. So when they start using the system and get that, they immediately can see the trends of their risks and where those are coming from, and then better train their staff to make sure that they've got all the training in place to manage those high risk stuff that they always come into contact with. They can immediately see all the staff on site who know what they're doing, and allow them to, potentially take on more responsibility on that site for those things, or which ones are disengaging, so they can help each other out in those things as well. So they immediately can see that all on a dashboard, simply for them to look at from almost the week one. Like immediately that customer in Canada, by next week, will have a better insight of their health and safety than what they would have had in the last 3-4 months.
So we've seen, particularly some of our major the main contractors at the top of the PCBU tree have, used our software to align their subcontractors with health and safety and be able to point out to the subbies, look, guys, you need to raise the game in order that you keep working with us. And I think that's, it's that visibility that when it comes to contracting and process that makes a difference. And I think, training records are huge as well. And we're starting to see, much better record keeping in terms of training. We're seeing people getting more training, more induction. The induction is, some of the form packs that we're putting together for our customers now are pretty in depth. So I think, when we first started a toolbox talk was lucky we had 3 questions on it. Most of them was about the rugby, but now you're sort of coming down to some quite detailed, well thought out, almost psychometric style questioning around health and safety. I think one of the other things I'm really proud of is that we know that through our work with some, the likes of The Effect and others, that there's mental health and suicide prevention and all that sort of thing. We know that data and engagement is a fundamental advantage in that space. And you've just got to think that ultimately you kind of doing God's work in that space. You're trying to get it in there. So it's a thing.
Yeah. No, thanks for going down that road. I was actually having a conversation with a friend this morning in regards to how do we define or even put some metrics around the whole health well-being piece? It's still such a kind of grey area, really. We've still got a long way to go. But you're absolutely right in terms of tools and means to promote active engagement has got to have a positive impact on overall culture within a business, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a fundamental thing, isn't there? That the bosses care that I make myself safe. And particularly when you're sending people to site and they might not see another worker for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. It's it's solitude's a killer, right? So literally, and so being able to feel engaged, being able to feel part of something. The cellular infrastructure these days, people are almost never offline. And the cool thing for our software's point of view is that if they are offline, we've got you covered. We have full offline mode, and that's fantastic. So Yeah, so I mean, from that point of view, we sort of got it both ways, and I think there's something to be said for that whole social connectivity. I wouldn't say for a moment I think we're a good conduit for organisations to deploy wellness practices and things.
Yes.
Our job we're a software company. We're not a health and safety company. We're just really good at software, and we create that container for other organisations to add those value layers. But I think by doing this, we're creating a layer for that sort of thing to develop.
Yes. And I love the fact that you've said that as well in terms of kind of remaining within your lane, right? So
100%.
It's like knowing your niche and like just smashing it, and the roll-on benefits will then obviously have a big impact on health and safety performance as well. So I'm just thinking, because in terms of my personal experience of doing site inspections and hearing down the grapevine about WorkSafe inspectors a few years back, and I felt the same, like arriving onto a project, a construction job, and doing my usual checks and walking around, and then I go back into the office to have a look at the documentation, and as time's gone on, I'm like, where's the documentation? It's all online now. It's on our phone. It's like, how do I access this? I can't tick my box. What am I going to do? So I feel that I've had to evolve some of my practices in order to overcome that. But is that something that you've heard? Is that feedback?
Well, maybe I'll talk about Canada but so we've got two products. We're one in food safety, one in health and safety, and the for the audience, the food safety game is very different from the health and safety game in that we know a lot about food science. So we know if we leave a piece of chicken on a bench and we leave it for 3 hours, it'll grow some bacteria that's going to make you sick. You leave it for another 6 hours, it's probably going to grow some bacteria that's going to kill you, right? So ultimately, don't eat the chicken.
Yeah.
And so when you're setting up a food business, you have practices that mean the chicken doesn't get left on the bench, and that when MPIs, auditors is not actually MPI, but their agents come along and do an audit, they look for practices that say that the chicken doesn't get left on the bench, right? Or that the tea towels are washed, or that there's hand cleaning processes. And all those things are designed to remove the scientifically managed issues. In the health and safety game, the science is behavioral science, right? And so I've got a friend of mine who's a builder who we happened to be with the other day, and he's not a health and safety nut. He goes, I cut that ladder for 80 years and I've never had a fall off, whatever it was. And you go like, look, that's absolutely fine. However, the young guy who leaves university, it's just odds. Yes. But if you take that ladder away and make it a scissor lift or make it safe, it's much harder to injure yourself. So it's this sort of behavioral science in health and safety, changing health and safety practices is really important. And then you come to your point, well, what does audit look like? Yeah. So in audit and food safety, it's a very prescriptive thing. We write down the temperature checks, right? Mm-hmm. But in health and safety, what does audit look like? So that's one of the things about the engagement score. It's one of the things about pieces of paper is we don't know when you filled it out. Mm-hmm. With software, we know where you were. Yeah. We know when you filled it out. We know how fulsome the answers were. And we know you signed it. And we even asked you to get a photo. So there's a lot of now about it, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we found in Canada, which I don't know we've got here yet, but there's a product called CORE, which is called Certificate of Recognition. It's not legislative mandated yet, but it's on its way. And effectively, you're core compliant, you get a rebate in their version of ACC. So quite clever. Yes. But there's a piece of software called AuditSoft, which is an audit tool only, which, companies like ours could, maybe will, build interfaces to that mean that when you're doing an AuditSoft audit, then that data flows backwards and forwards into our software, including corrective actions and, et cetera, et cetera. So, and so I think the New Zealand market is, I would just love to see WorkSafe or SiteSafe or Chasms turn up with for someone like yourselves, a really grunty audit tool that we can interface with and go, we can feed backwards and forwards on this.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you've just sowed some seeds there. I think that's such a great idea. Because, the current workarounds I've got with some of my clients, so some of my clients are pretty large, well, they are large PMOs. And so for their project management team, they've had to build it into their routine practices. Yeah. So on a monthly 100%. Basis, they'll have their monthly progress meeting with the main contractors, sometimes the client's representatives, and they'll have that data in front of them. So at least they're verifying that it's actually happening in practice. but it's still, it feels a little bit antiquated still, 'cause we're still having to drag old data out, you know.
Yeah, so we're an organisation has SimPro or Procore or any of the big tools that we all know and love, or even if they don't, even if they've got something a bit strange, we have ways to interface to those, and it's a really good use case. The idea that your project managers have got the audits baked in, and then that audit information flows backwards and forwards into our software, which have interfaces for user moving backwards and forwards as well. And that's definitely in mid to large business, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a nice part of the market.
Yeah, I love it. So good, so good. So whilst I'm talking about the health and safety practitioner, so with that lens, is there any, from your experience over the years, is there any lessons learned that would be worth sharing to the health and safety community? Is there any thoughts or feedback?
I think,
Nice or otherwise.
No, I've talked to a lot of different health and safety practitioners, whether they're similar to yourself, like the consultant side out and working with many businesses, or the ones who work solely for one company. The main thing, and this may sound biased for myself, but is actually start looking at adopting that tech. You talk to so many that have been on paper and only done paper, and when I start talking to them, it's SciDAP Pro's been the first one that they have had a look at or have come across, or they let their customers dictate what system they use, and therefore they're not necessarily using the most dynamic tool or something that is fully integrated to work for the whole business and all those kind of things. So take a look at systems like SciDAP Pro and see what it can do for you, how dynamic it can be. Like what Michael said with the group functionality, being able to release your own payloads to your customers and your clients. For customers themselves, being able to see, that full overview and visibility of what's going on your sites. That is just so powerful compared to, if you're sticking with the paper trail side of things, you're just delaying that adoption that you're going to take at some point in the future anyway.
100%. And I think, like, if you can get your health and safety practitioner like yourselves, you've got your customers using SciDAP, you can sit at your desk and watch how they're doing it and go, actually, I need to go and see these guys, right? And so instead of you turning up and wandering around and looking for issues, there's a problem. And then when you get there, you're not ticking and flicking and checking paper, you're actually doing behavioural work. So, hey guys, we're going to have a toolbox talk, we're going to have a chat. Last week I only got 10% of you filling anything in at all, and so you start addressing the issues, and they go, look, last week it rained, or, we had we were off at a tangi or something, okay. So it's sort of it's that getting the intervention moment, getting the early warnings, but being able to add value to the clients rather than just go out there and tick and flick. You actually go out there and having proper conversations about health and safety.
It's brilliant. I just want to underscore the point that I keep hearing behavioural safety coming up from Michael, and I love that, because for me that's my DNA. It's like trying to get away from it. We have to comply. We must tick these boxes, which is doing no one any favours. And actually getting into the proactive safety in action.
I agree with you entirely. But I would say, if my son was working on a job site and and they weren't doing any health and safety, rather than tick and flick than nothing at all, right? And I think that's we've all heard these stories, but you're down the pub, you're chatting to someone and go, oh, my son's an electrician, and it's all the paperwork, it's terrible, and my answer is but it's like, is he alive? Yeah, well, it's working. It's kind of it's because the guys who aren't doing it aren't allowed to talk about it.
Yes.
So it's I go all the way back to that. We started with that conversation I had with that friend when a worker had fallen off the building, and when he literally ran off the course, we didn't know if she was alive or not, right? And that's just, no one should go through that.
No,
it's just awful.
No, you've got me thinking. I'm pretty sure it's Chaz Answers is running the program at the moment that work should not hurt, which I think is great. It's such a great title. It's just clear and tells you exactly what's in the can, really. So in terms of so this is kind of one of the key takeaways from the last few minutes is that the health and safety practitioner, whether consultant or internal in-house health and safety advisor, should be doing their homework in terms of they should put this in their mindset in terms of what the customer wants. So the customer is going to be either your employer or the person who's paying your your wage. And having a really hard think about actually what is it they're looking for. Because I often see this, again, going back to the NZHSP group, where people often come in, and it's all good to ask this question, which is, can anyone recommend a software solution? And I'm sitting there going, there's so many variables that you can't just, and then everyone just jumps in and starts throwing, I've tried this, try that. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Like, how big is the organization? What's their risk appetite? What does engagement mean for them? You know?
Yeah, look, and we, because we're a bit geeky about it, we talk about a thing called the ideal customer profile, right? And so Storm said, I mean, gosh, when we started, we had Red Bull using our software. You know, we were all over, like, health and safety, brilliant, you know. And then as we've sort of evolved and got smarter and more mature, we've identified our ideal customer profile. And, you know, our ideal customer profile, yes, we've got lots of really cool small companies using our software. And you know, we want it, that's great, but realistically we're just one size above that. And then, you know, we don't have any Fletchers in our but we don't have a Downers, we don't have, you know, the really, really big, we're not to the best of my knowledge in at the CRL or at the Central, actually we might be at Central Interceptor, but we're sort of in that mid zone. Right? And by focusing on those type of organizations, we can really serve that ICP need. And I think so software is like this game where anyone can get into it. And, you know, the joke, probably something we might need to edit out, but you're at a party on the North Shore and someone says, what do you do? It's, you know, it's a little software company. We're doing health and safety and doing good work. My brother-in-law's building one of those in his garage. It's like, of course he is. And it's like, and like when we built SiteApp, I mean, John, our CTO, already had 25 years software experience. I've got 25, 30. And so when we spun up our AWS instances, when we built out the Ionic frameworks for our mobile, like we'd done it all before. When we needed to add QR codes because of COVID, we literally could do it in a week or so. And so the software, just like when you build a house, you don't want some guys never built a house before. You want someone who's got some pedigree. And that's what we're all about. I mean, we are millions and millions of dollars into this build. It is a big deal. And you know, as CEO, my job is to take that investment and turn it into an opportunity on the other side. But I'd much rather do that on a very, very solid foundation than do it on something that's always going to sort of stagger. So
that explains why, or partly explains why I guess I ended up speaking to you guys, because for a long time there, I had actually pulled up the drawbridge, because what was happening in my space was I was getting inundated almost on a daily basis with, I've got the latest whiz-bang solution and you need to check out my tool and let's have a free demo. And I'm just sitting there going, no, well, actually, this isn't free to me. This is my time that I'm getting, looking at all this stuff, which really was junk. And being created in a garage or in the spare bedroom. So it took a lot for SiteApp Pro to kind of make me bring the drawbridge back down. So obviously you piqued my interest really early when I came across you, and I've been thoroughly impressed ever since. It's been fantastic, and so I guess it kind of brings me around to, and I've heard this mentioned a few times now, is Canada. So it's of no surprise to me that it looks like you moving out and branching into Canada has been so far, right?
I'm trying to get the version of this right for you. But so when we did, I mean, we've been, I guess by any definition, pretty successful in New Zealand. I mean, 3,300 clients. Last year we grew at a little bit under 80%. This year we'll grow at about between 50 and 60. Amazing. Relatively low churn and actually very good churn. So we're really happy with where we are. But the New Zealand market is relatively small. So, like all good New Zealand software companies, we need to go offshore. So for the last 2 years, we've been looking at where to go and why. And natural jumping off place was Australia. So we've made a bunch of Australian sales. We've got a bunch of Australian resellers signed up. Yeah, and we've enjoyed that space. But there's some really big differences between the Australian and New Zealand markets in terms of health and safety. And, the first thing is that the mines have played a really big part in the development of the Australian construction industry. And mining is a dangerous big game with lots of money in it. And even though, you might be a chippy on the Gold Coast or a tradie on the Gold Coast, even though you've never been to a mine or not involved, the health and safety that your main contractors are asking of you, or even your architects, some of its genesis come from that big industrial side. The Australian market is incredibly well trained through their TAFE programs. Their tradespeople have a high degree of health and safety training, which is powerful. Their labour rates are really high. So their labour rates are significantly higher than ours. They pay a little more tax, but they have a higher rate, and then they're also still unionised. Right? So this all vectors into a health and safety culture that is several notches above that in New Zealand. The other thing that happens is that in Australia, and you can see it, the stats, right? I mean, don't need to go to that, but you just see it, right? So one of the things in Australia is they pre-plan all the health and safety. So I send you to site, you already know how to make yourself safe, right? It is all, you're trained, you've got to swim, everything is constrained, right? Whereas in New Zealand, what we tend to do is provide a level of training, a level of pre-planning, but on the whole, we rely on the guys at site to make themselves safe. We give them the tools, we give them the understanding, we give them the knowledge, but it's still on them, right? And that's where SiteApp is brilliant because it connects the back office to front office. In Australia, that's less of a problem to solve, right? So from that point of view, while the ICP existed, what we call the product market fit, not so much. We looked at the United States, we looked at the UK, and we looked at Canada. UK, I think I saw a stat the other day that New Zealand's health and safety is about where the UK was in 1990.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They built the Olympic Games, they killed no one, right? I mean, they are rock stars. So because of that, their health and safety standards are really strong. Our product will fit, but it's to be honest, most of the construction sites over there know so much more about health and safety than we do. It'd be a big pool to swim in, right? The United States, absolutely a market for us. And we've made really good sales in California. We're loving that. But the legislation is not the driver. The driver is insurance companies. The driver is making your workers safe. The driver is not being sued. So it's a different metric, right? Canada, though. Canada is like the best of everything. It's got a similar attitude to health and safety that we do in New Zealand. Massive commitment to health and safety. So their fines are going up. So 7 years ago, the cost of human life was roughly about $90,000 in Alberta. Today, it's closer to $1 million.
Okay.
Right. This is big shift in jeopardy and responsibility. They have custodial sentences. They're really starting to lean in. They've got core. They've got all the metrics that start moving a market. But in terms of the way their construction industry works, very similar to ours. Right. So, however, what we're learning at speed is their depth on subject is really strong. They really do know their stuff. And while our product fits and our ICP fits, they're a pretty sharp market, and we're loving it. So it's been really good for us. And we'll get a crossover point in the next 2, 3, 4 months where we'll generate more revenue out of Canada than we will out of New Zealand. So which is good. And then we just started, and there's some really big organizations. It's great. I would never have wanted to start in Canada. I think everything we've learned in New Zealand has been really powerful for what we're doing over there. I mean, from the likes of yourselves and your colleagues and your peers, you guys have all fed into us and we've listened. And so when we turn up in Canada, while it's a little different, very thematically the same. And I think there's a lot in that Commonwealth country thing. And like I said, UK is the waterfall of all knowledge when it comes to health and safety.
There's heaps to unpack in all of that. I mean, Business 101, it's a great example of when you've got a great product and when you align it with the right perfect market, just anything's possible. It's just so interesting. For operators like for myself, I just got my small consultancy and a couple of 3 franchise operators now. And inevitably I'm looking overseas and thinking, the grass is green. I can see there's green fields and the green paddocks over there. But in terms of the international markets and that knowledge, that's where I fall very short. Clearly, you've done your homework.
I think. So in the health and safety space in New Zealand particularly, super important that people like yourselves exist because it democratises health and safety. you're traveling across a bunch of clients, so you've got I don't know about time, but you've got motivation to listen to what's happening in legislation, to look at what changes in government mean, to look at what's happening in terms of the courts and all the, which we won't go into, but you're able to assimilate that and bring that down to your customer base, and then using a product like ours, you can put that payload inside our software. But even if you don't, you're bringing value to that market that wouldn't be there elsewhere. In Canada, we've found the same thing. We've found there's a layer of health and safety practitioners, much like yourself, some bigger, some smaller, and they are doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
We do find there's a broader specialization. So they there'll be ESG specialists, there'll be event management, there'll be cleaning companies, so whereas health and safety in New Zealand is still largely in construction, it's not entirely, and it's agriculture, it's forestry, but in there we're finding health and safety consultants in Canada are much broader, right through from rest times, aged care, through to schools and event management and everything in between. So we're staying away from that. Our DNA is, Side Apps Orange, we get the health and safety thing, and that's kind of the construction thing. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Definitely, pick your brains about that another
the
time.
2 beer conversations.
Yeah, definitely. That's right. So we've already had some pretty significant hints in some new products and some new releases in the foreseeable. Is there anything else that you're able to tailor or at least hint?
I was going to throw the ball to Storm, but if he lets it out, it's going to be a mistake. It's going to be wrong.
So I don't want to open up any employment relations.
No, not at all. I think we can probably talk about Contractor Portal because it's in the underway.
It's in the beta.
It's in the beta
at the moment. Yeah.
I'm so glad you went down that road. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So, well, do you want to cover? You talk contract portal.
Yeah. So
on New Future, you do real.
one of the big things we found talking to our main contractor customers was the enabling the contractor to be involved in their health and safety plan and those kind of things. So we sort of took a lot of that feedback and scoped out this new contractor portal. It's currently in beta with some of our customers at the moment, using it before we release it to the wide audience. But the idea being, we firstly want to get that better documentation approval process. So your contractor, or your subcontractors who you want to bring onto your job sites, submit their SSPs, their policies, their pre-qualification, the likes. You give the approval or reject based on whatever qualification standards you have. And that all happens within Side Apps. So you get that trail of that coming in. They're changing those rejected documents and those as well. So everyone shared that within one platform.
Brilliant.
And then your staff come into site. Who are they?
Yeah.
Is the first one that we kind of find. We don't necessarily know what subcontractors are turning up to site until they're there, or you expected Michael, but Michael's sick today, so Matt's turning up. So enabling every one of your contractors to turn up, but putting that responsibility back a little bit to the subcontractor themselves. So they know who they want to send. They give the access to them to get them on site and give them the health and safety plan that they need. So it keeps that communication up from the main contractor right through the whole contractor base and giving everyone the involvement to be involved in that process. So a few things that the team are working on in terms of, inviting them and getting everyone involved and all that kind of thing, which is great. But that the goal of that will be that if you're a main contractor and you have your contractors on site, you will know, even though they're not your employees, you get that visual view over them just as strongly as you do your own staff as well.
So good. Yeah, that's so desperately needed as well. So you've got full oversight of the entire supply chain potentially. So good. And then all down to individual team member.
Yeah, the individual one's the key part, because you don't have control over who comes onto your job sites at some level as a main contractor. So knowing that Henry's plumbing and they've got this one apprentice who's a 19-year-old who's just finished high school, does he have all the qualifications he needs to be on our site? We can see that inside our product. It's that level of depth that it's going to hopefully give you.
So good. And going back to the discussion around permits to work, for example, at least then you've got confidence that they've got a system in place and they know how to use it.
100%. The permit to work thing, which will be out early next year, that combined with Contractor Portal and then we've got some workflow engines coming across the top of that, makes it all much more of the full ecosystem. And I think that's key. And I mean, the other big changes for us, we'll do a lot more in equipment management soon. We've got quite, pretty strong equipment management, but we've always held back a little bit because we figured, well, it's going to be an asset management tool we can plug into. And, save for the likes of an E-Road or others, it's like, there's nothing out there. And so we're going, okay, we're going to need to build that out. And so that'll be quite cool. I've actually got a meeting a couple of days' time with some guys who do RFID tags on tools, and they're like, yeah, maybe they'll work, maybe it won't. But just this idea that, and Hilti's had that for a while. So this idea of, getting the equipment register and making it dynamic, and, before you pick it up, are you registered? So that's, we're starting exploring that. You touched on documents before, which we've got a big commitment to add layers and layers of management to that, but also allowing AI tools to run across the top to be able to mine that documentation. So it's not just a better library, it's actually a more intelligent tool that sits across it. We've got a lot more coming in terms of our usability. That just never stops. You've just got to keep evolving. Every time Apple or Android releases its next version, we've got to be right. Okay, A, we've got to be compliant, but B, like Apple just changed the metaphors again. It's like, okay, here we go. Let's change up our look and feel. Let's keep it moving. And so there's a lot of that going on. Some of the tech we aren't actively considering at the moment. I think there's, in the space we are operating in, our ICP, RPMF, there is some level of overreach. So, people who put wearables or, helmets that are smart or cameras on cranes, etc. And it's great tech. Absolutely love it, right? And, it allows AI and imaging and automatic detection. And, this concrete truck has been on site for this long. But our customers, they stand up a job and put down a job in 120 days. They don't have time or money to install the cameras and all the tech that goes with it. It's like, get in, get out. Or your site might be, some of the subbies are on site for 20 minutes, right? So your stuff's got to be quick, clean. So it's back to our ICP.
Yes.
But we're keeping an eye on new tech, what will come, and knowing in terms of peripheral technologies, we don't want to be a driver of change. We'd rather be a fast follower, and we'll just sort of see where that lands. But when it lands, we'll be there. Absolutely will.
Maybe that's why we get on so well, actually, because I think it's very similar DNA. It's kind of trying to keep well aware of actually what changes on the horizon, which is a challenge in itself, right? It'd be a full-time job just by doing that, but actually probably the most important part is actually acting on that, testing to see what is out there, getting a flavour for it, and trying to figure if that's actually going to come back and work well for you guys. Interestingly enough, I used to have a partnership with an organisation that did RFD, RFID tech, where it's trying to track and trace bits of plant and equipment. Cool, but the actual usability in practice kind of didn't quite do what it said on the tin.
It is a tech that it evolves, and I think it will continue to evolve. On the B2C space, look at Apple AirTags. Freaking brilliant. It's just because the clever tech about that is not that it can talk to your phone; it's that it talks to everyone else's phone, and it's running a mesh based on which Apple iPhone was I closest to last. Tell that Apple iPhone that this is where I am. That I love. But we have to wait for the tech to evolve. That's not something we don't have Apple's budget, but it does own it.
No, that's right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So I mentioned that I bought this Black Friday sales last year. I also bought a wallet that's got an Apple tag. For that reason, because I'm forever losing my wallet. Save my
100%,
like hundreds of times.
So if you look at the use case for tools, so lots of you take a waterproofing company, for example, they might have 80 or 90 tools in a vehicle, and some of these things are quite expensive. The guy leaves the van open, or he can't remember he put the tool in, or another guy comes around, Johnny's got that, opens the van door, grabs the tool, drives off. It's really hard. And they're not the sort of people that keep an accurate asset registry or anything else, but if those tools can talk to the world and tell you where they are, and so it's not just about theft prevention, it's all about where's my tool, and the amount of time lost trying to find a tool, and so on and so forth. So Yeah, I mean, definitely that tech will come along and be a big part of what we do as well. So
yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. And I think probably the big takeaway here is just keeping all of the solutions or all of the products that have been put out there, keeping it people focused ultimately, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what we're here to try and achieve, right?
All about people, right? Yeah, no, totally.
I love it. Okay, reluctantly, I think it's probably a good time to wrap up at this point, but I sense we'll probably end up having more conversations like this in the future. There's so much going on with you guys internationally, also within the product itself. It's amazing. So, Michael, Storm, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, man. I really enjoyed it. Great chat, and thank you for all that you do. I mean, I think it's super important that people like yourselves are out there doing what you're doing. These podcasts are fun. That's good.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Health and Safety Unplugged.